When the last human transmission reached the Galactic Council, it wasn't a plea for mercy, it was a recipe. A barbecue recipe. The aliens thought it was a glitch. They were wrong. When the final human transmission reached the Galactic Council, it wasn't a plea for mercy. It wasn't even military data. It was a recipe. Specifically, something called Texas-style barbecue brisket. The aliens argued for hours over whether it was a coded battle plan. The Drevlok suggested the ingredients were chemical formulas for explosives. The Varen insisted the instructions were coordinates hidden in metaphor. The Glarn just thought smoke for 12 hours was some kind of atmospheric weapon. In the end, they dismissed it as nonsense. After all, Earth had been burned, humanity wiped out. The war was over. At least, that's what they told themselves. The council chambers shimmered with polished steel and holographic star maps. Alien dignitaries lounged in their seats, congratulating one another on the final solution to the human problem. They were clever parasites, rumbled High Speaker Korath of the Drevlok, his scaled hide glowing faintly under the lights. But cleverness dies with its host. Their species is no more. The chamber rippled with agreement. All except one voice. Not quite. Every alien eye turned to the human seated casually at the far end of the chamber, a mug of something steaming in his hand. Captain Elias Monroe looked terribly out of place. His uniform was scorched around the collar, hair disheveled, but he sat as if in a cafe on a quiet Sunday morning. He raised his mug. Coffee? He asked politely. No. Shame. Best thing left in the galaxy. Gasps, hisses, and clicks of outrage filled the chamber. The Glarn delegate slammed a claw on the table. You should not exist. Your species has been eradicated. Monroe smiled, faint crow's feet forming around his eyes. Eradicated. Strong word. Funny thing about ghosts, they don't stay gone. The Drevlok speaker leaned forward, teeth bared. Explain this insolence. Humanity's fleets were destroyed. Your homeworld reduced to glass. We saw the slaughter ourselves. Monroe took a slow sip of coffee, unbothered. Yes, you did make a mess of the place. Bit rude if you asked me. But you see, history has this pattern with humans. People declare us extinct every other century. Romans thought they had us. Plagues tried. Nuclear brinkmanship gave it a shot. And yet here I sit, still sipping. A ripple of unease crossed the chamber. The Varen delegate, her crystalline body refracting the lights, spoke carefully. We intercepted your last transmissions. Meaningless jokes. Pictures of felines. Recipes for meat. Ah, Monroe said, chuckling. Memes. Sacred tradition. If you're about to be erased, might as well leave the galaxy a punchline. Keeps morale up. Confuses the hell out of your enemies. 2 birds, 1 stone. You mock us. I'm a human, Monroe said pleasantly. Mockery's a survival trait. The council began murmuring again. Some insisted he was bluffing. Others demanded immediate execution. Yet no one moved. Something in his tone, too calm, too casual, made even the bravest hesitate. The Glarn delegate finally spat. What are you hiding, human? Speak plainly. Monroe leaned back in his chair. Plainly? Well, ghosts leave traces. Scanners miss them, radars get jumpy. You might have noticed a few odd blips lately? Fleets chasing shadows? Empty space that shoots back? The chamber froze. Yes. They had noticed. Reports of phantom signals, unexplained malfunctions, entire patrols disappearing. They dismissed them as anomalies. Glitches. Korath growled. Coincidence. Of course, Monroe said smoothly. Coincidence. But maybe, just maybe, it's us. And maybe you should keep those scanners on wideband. Very wide. The Varen tilted her crystalline head. Impossible. We destroyed your shipyards. Shipyards? Monroe smiled wider, eyes gleaming with mischief. Those were just our garages. The chamber erupted. Some aliens shouted in disbelief, others demanded clarification. Monroe simply set his mug down and folded his hands politely, as though waiting for dessert to be served. "You're lying," hissed Korath. "Could be," Monroe said lightly. "Or maybe humanity doesn't do extinction. We just do sequels." For the first time in centuries, the council chamber felt cold. Because somewhere deep in the silence of space, faint signals echoed. Ghostly, intermittent, impossible. Fleets of ships where none should exist. Shadows gathering at the edge of every star map. And the human sitting calmly in their midst, sipping his coffee, smiling politely, was in no hurry to explain. The council didn't adjourn that night. Too many reports, too many whispers. Admirals from half a dozen empires projected data across the chamber, sensor logs, tactical feeds, panic transmissions. Fleets swore they were ambushed by enemies that weren't there. A Drevlock captain described his own ships firing blindly into the void until their weapons overheated, only for the Phantom fleet to vanish like mist. "Software corruption," argued the Varen delegate, though her crystalline body flickered uneasily. "Your primitive systems are vulnerable to decay." "Decay doesn't sink 3 warships without leaving wreckage," snapped a Glarn general. His claws drummed against the table, gouging deep marks in the alloy. At the edge of the chamber, Monroe leaned back in his chair, rolling his empty mug thoughtfully as if considering a refill. "I told you," he said softly. "Ghosts linger." Every eye swung toward him. Korath slammed a fist into the table. "Enough riddles, human! Your fleets are ash. Your armies are dust." Monroe nodded pleasantly. "True. And yet, strange how dust can clog an engine, jam a rifle, choke a soldier. Funny little thing, dust. You taunt us with nonsense." "Not nonsense," Monroe said, eyes glinting. "Foreshadowing." The chamber fell silent as new data fed into the projection. Unregistered energy spikes near the Avernus Rift. Unexplained power signatures in the Othis Belt. Dozens of smaller anomalies, scattered across every border. The Drevlock admiral's voice trembled. "These signals, they move as one. Formation-like." "Coincidence," muttered another, though no one believed it. Monroe folded his arms across his chest. "Coincidence. Favorite word of conquerors right before things go sideways." A Glarn general leaned forward, snout wrinkled. "If these are your phantoms, then speak plain. What are they?" Monroe's smile was thin. "Insurance." "Insurance?" "See, humans have a habit of preparing for the worst. Tornado shelters, backup plans, extra batteries in the drawer. You wiped out our cities, sure, but you didn't check under the floorboards. You imply shipyards still exist." "Oh no," Monroe corrected politely. "Shipyards are obvious. You bombed the obvious. That was the point. Meanwhile, we were busy elsewhere." The council erupted in protests. Impossible. Illogical. Resources didn't exist. The logistics alone. "Ridiculous," the Varen snapped. "Even your most efficient industrial capacity could not support hidden armadas." Monroe shrugged. "You ever hear of Detroit?" Blank stares. "Thought not. Look it up later. We're very good at factories." The Drevlock speaker tried another angle. "Even if such forces existed, they would not remain hidden from the Guild's intelligence." Monroe tapped his temple with a finger. "Intelligence only works when you assume your enemy thinks like you. We don't. We build garages into bunkers. Turn mines into launch bays. Hide warships in asteroid rings, under ice crusts behind." He stopped, smiled. "Ah, but spoilers ruin the story, don't they?" The council hissed and argued, but none could ignore the unease creeping in. The anomalies were too widespread, too organized. The Varen delegate finally asked the question aloud. "Are you suggesting humanity anticipated extermination?" Monroe leaned forward, his voice lowering. "We didn't anticipate. We planned." Silence heavier than any explosion filled the chamber. "You mean you lured us?" Monroe's tone was almost kind. "Lured? No. More like, rehearsed. You came for our home, and yes, you got your victory parade. But every time you thought we were running, we were stockpiling. Every retreat was just a cargo run. Every broken fleet was cover for the real shipments. The Glarn general snarled. Madness! Monroe sipped from his refilled mug. That's what they said about the Wright brothers. Until something flew over their heads. Another projection flickered onto the chamber wall, a grainy signal recording from the Avernus rift. Shadow shapes sliding out of the dark, massive, silent, organized. No insignia. No known designs. But faintly, just faintly, the symbol of a blue-green planet etched on one hull. An Earth insignia. The council went utterly still. The Drevlock speaker's voice cracked. Impossible. That ship was destroyed centuries ago. Monroe's smile didn't waver. History books are funny things. Full of edits, omissions, revisions. We prefer sequels. The Varen delegate's crystal facets dimmed. If this is true, then what you've unleashed is not a fleet. It's a plague. Careful, Monroe said, eyes narrowing. We don't like that word. Last time someone called us a plague, we cured them. Permanently. The tension broke into shouting. Alien leaders accused one another of incompetence, demanded more fleets deployed, screamed for explanations. Reports streamed in faster now, freighters vanishing, border outposts going silent, entire squadrons failing to report. In the chaos, Monroe sat quietly, sipping his coffee. Finally, Korath bellowed. Why are you calm, human? Speak the truth. What do you want? Monroe looked up, his expression polite but steel behind the eyes. What do we want? He set his mug down gently. Closure. The word landed like a detonation. Aliens glanced nervously at one another. Closure meant endings. Finality. Not negotiation. You mean vengeance? The Varen whispered. Monroe tilted his head, considering. Vengeance is emotional. This isn't. It's arithmetic. You killed billions. We respond in kind until the equation balances. Nothing personal, well, mostly nothing. You threaten the council itself? I wouldn't dream of it, Monroe said smoothly. I'm simply letting you know the weather report. Forecast says storms. Best bring an umbrella. At that exact moment, alarms shrieked through the chamber. A live feed appeared above the table, an alien patrol fleet shredded in seconds by invisible fire. Ships crumbled one after another, gutted by unseen weapons. Then, for the first time, the attackers flickered into view. Ghostly, angular warships. Human design, but sleeker, colder, more terrifying than anything seen before. Silent killers sliding back into shadow once their work was done. The chamber froze in horror. Monroe retrieved his mug, stood, and nodded politely to the council. Gentlemen. Ladies. Whatever the appropriate pronouns are, he said cheerfully. Meet the fleet of ghosts. The first salvo landed without warning. In the outer systems of the Galactic Council, 5 Drevlock warcruisers patrolled an empty sector. Empty until it wasn't. They never saw the human ships decloak. One heartbeat there was only stars. The next, sudden bursts of blue fire lanced across the void, cutting hulls apart like paper. A Drevlock captain had just enough time to scream before his bridge vanished in a silent flash. The feed broadcast live into the council chamber. Alien leaders shouted over one another. Some demanded retreat orders, others screamed to mobilize fleets. None could agree, none could breathe. Only Monroe stood calm, hands folded behind his back, eyes fixed on the holographic carnage. Beautiful, he murmured. Efficient. They practiced that move for years. Korath roared. What sorcery is this? Monroe turned his head, his smile polite. Sorcery? Oh no. Just engineering. You bombed our shipyards, yes. But shipyards are for building. Ghosts were already built. The chamber erupted again, but Monroe kept talking, his voice smooth over the noise. We learned early you'd come for Earth. Couldn't stop that. So we built somewhere you'd never look. Buried hulls under asteroid crusts, sealed them inside comets, camouflaged them as derelicts. You won the war against our cities. Congratulations. But you missed the war we were actually fighting. Another live feed, alien fleets scrambling to intercept. The Ghost Fleet moved like a predator pack. Ships slid through void black cloaks, firing in perfect unison. Not loud, not messy, surgical. Alien destroyers crumpled without warning, command carriers imploded before orders could be issued. They didn't fight like prey. They hunted. The Varen delegate's crystalline edges dimmed to near black. These ships are coordinated beyond anything we've seen. Monroe nodded, sipping from his ever-present mug. That's humanity for you. You give us extinction, we answer with choreography. Think of it like ballet, if ballet had missile racks. You jest as we die. Korath snarled. Monroe's gaze hardened, smile thinning. Correction, you jested as we died. Now we're just evening the scorecard. Reports poured in faster. Outer colonies cut off. Trading lanes strangled. Ghost signatures appearing in every quadrant at once. Fleets tried to retaliate, firing blind into the dark, but for every volley they launched, 2 of their ships went silent. It wasn't a war. It was a harvest. The Glarn general finally snapped, slamming his claws into the table. What do you want from us, human? Speak! Monroe tilted his head, considering the question. His tone was calm, almost kind. What do we want? Simple. We want you to feel what we felt. The silence after cities burn. The absence when voices go missing. That hollowness that never fills again. You're monsters. Monroe's smile returned, faint and cold. Takes one to know one. The chambers shook as another live feed lit up. This time, the Ghost Fleet didn't simply fire, they transmitted. Not orders. Not threats. Music. A haunting, distorted recording of human voices singing. The aliens couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable, mournful, yet rising with fury. The Varen shuddered. Why broadcast this? Monroe's eyes were fixed on the song. Because ghosts don't just kill. They haunt. Across space, alien morale crumbled. Pilots fled their posts. Crews mutinied, refusing to engage the undead fleet. Rumors spread faster than transmissions. Humans had risen from death itself, their ships crewed by shadows, their weapons guided by vengeful spirits. And every rumor made the Ghost Fleet stronger. Inside the chamber, the panic turned on Monroe. Guards advanced, weapons drawn. Korath growled. You will tell us where these fleets are based. Now! Monroe set down his mug with exaggerated care. You're pointing weapons at the wrong problem. I'm just the messenger. The ghosts, they've already chosen their targets. You lie. Do I? Right on cue, another alarm blared. A new feed flickered into the chamber, an alien shipyard engulfed in flames. Docked vessels exploding one by one, chain reactions gutting the entire station. The Ghost Fleet didn't just hunt ships anymore. It was tearing down infrastructure, slicing the galaxy's arteries. Monroe leaned forward, his voice dropping into something darker, sharper. You thought slaughter ended us. But you miscalculated. Slaughter isn't an end. It's a beginning. You didn't bury humanity, you fertilized it. The council fell into stunned silence. Even Korath could only glare, jaw tight, claws trembling. Monroe broke it with a chuckle. Besides, extinction doesn't suit us. We tried it with the dinosaurs. Terrible PR. We do comebacks instead. Another explosion filled the projection. Alien fleets collapsing. Entire sectors blinking off the map. The Varen whispered. This is impossible. No species survives such loss. Monroe's eyes were steel now. No species like yours. We're different. We don't just survive. We return. Stronger. Smarter. Meaner. The Glarn general snarled, voice shaking with equal parts fear and rage. Then what is your demand? End this madness before all is lost. Monroe studied him for a long moment, then said softly. Madness? No. Precision. As for demands, that depends on your definition of lost. He let the words hang, the implication heavy. Outside, the ghost fleet struck again, silent, merciless, unstoppable. And in the chamber, for the first time in galactic history, the most powerful empires realized the terrible truth: humanity had never been defeated. They'd only been waiting. The war room aboard Retribution thrummed with a steady pulse of machinery and muted voices. Tactical overlays swam in the air, projected in crimson and blue. For weeks, humanity's vengeance had unfolded like a storm, burning through one Dominion system after another, yet Admiral Marcus Hale knew this was not the end. The final act was still to come. He stood at the center of the chamber, hands folded behind his back, as the holographic map shifted. Dominion-controlled stars blinked out, each marked with a flicker of fire as if the universe itself acknowledged the destruction. Around him, officers watched in silence, their expressions equal parts triumph and exhaustion. 72 systems neutralized, Commander Alara Vance reported, her tone clipped. No Dominion fleet left in those sectors. Civilian infrastructure, gone. Hale's jaw tightened. He understood the weight behind her pause. Speak plainly, Commander. They'll starve, she said. Every world we left burning was their breadbasket, their fuel supply, their lifeline. A ripple of unease crossed the chamber. Vengeance had been clear from the start: strike hard, show no mercy. But the scale was beginning to sink in. From the corner, General Idris folded his arms. His scarred face was carved from stone. They slaughtered Earth, he growled. They salted our oceans, burned our cities, made monuments of our dead. Don't speak to me of mercy now. We swore ashes for ashes. Vance did not flinch. I'm not asking for mercy, General. I'm asking how long before their desperation makes them dangerous in ways we haven't predicted. Her words hung heavy. Hale allowed silence to stretch before he finally spoke. Desperation breeds monsters. And monsters are exactly what we intend to drag from their shadows. The tactical display shifted again, centering on the Dominion's capital system. Vast orbital fortresses glimmered around the twin suns. Their fleets, shattered but not annihilated, still guarded the approach. The map looked less like stars and more like a throat waiting to be cut. They'll expect us to stop here, Hale said. They'll expect us to declare victory and retreat to rebuild. That is how the old wars were fought. Idris leaned forward, voice sharp. But we are not the old wars. A grim smile touched Hale's lips. Exactly. We don't retreat. We finish. The fleet moved days later, sliding through silent dark toward the Dominion core. Word of their approach spread before them like a plague. Entire systems broadcast surrender pleas, their governors begging for terms. Hale ignored them all. This war had never been about negotiation. It was about finality. On the eve of arrival, he called his senior staff into the observation deck. Beyond the glass, the galaxy burned, literal fire still visible on Dominion worlds far behind them. Hale let the silence do its work before speaking. You've seen what we've done, he began, voice low. Every soldier, every pilot, every technician aboard this fleet carries the weight of Earth's dead on their shoulders. But tonight I ask you this: do we stop at vengeance, or do we carve our place into history so deep it can never be erased? Idris slammed a fist against his chest plate. We end them. No Dominion ever rises again. Vance's eyes flickered with conflict. And when the ashes settle, Admiral? What then? A galaxy that sees us not as victims avenging our dead, but as executioners who burned an empire alive? Hale met her gaze without blinking. Then they will fear us. And fear, Commander, is diplomacy's sharpest blade. No one argued after that. The battle for the Dominion capital began in silence. Human ships slipped from FTL like wolves entering a pen of wounded prey. Their thrusters glowed faint blue against the void, engines whispering death. The Dominion's defense lines lit up instantly, scattering lances of plasma across the void. Explosions rippled where orbital guns struck decoys, where human frigates dove headlong into fire just to tear holes in their shields. The sky itself seemed to scream. On the bridge of retribution, Hale's voice was steady. Press the flanks. Drive them inward. Make them choke on their own formation. Orders rippled out, precise and merciless. Human cruisers cut arcs through the chaos, peeling Dominion carriers apart. Drones swarmed like locusts, burrowing into enemy hulls, detonating in white fire. For every human ship lost, 3 Dominion vessels fell. The capital world loomed ahead, a sphere of light and shadow wrapped in steel. Fortresses ringed its orbit, each the size of a city, each bristling with guns. But Hale had studied them. He knew their firing arcs, their blind spots, the gaps arrogance had left behind. "No!" he ordered. And retribution surged forward, its main cannons igniting. A beam of pure annihilation lanced through the void, cutting a fortress in half. Human bombers screamed past, leaving trails of fire that shattered the orbital grid. Dominion comms crackled across the channel, desperate, panicked, pleading. Hale listened to none of it. He watched instead as the enemy's proud defenses collapsed like glass beneath a hammer. Hours bled together. When the last fortress fell, silence claimed the system. Only the Dominion capital itself remained, shielded, defiant, its cities glowing beneath the atmosphere like veins of fire. Vance's voice was quiet. "They're hailing us. Offering surrender." The bridge fell still. All eyes turned to Hale. He thought of Earth, the silence where oceans had been, the craters where cities once thrived. He thought of children turned to ash, of monuments of bone. His voice, when it came, was iron. "No surrender." Idris's grin was savage. Vance closed her eyes, but said nothing. "Target their capital," Hale ordered. "Leave nothing standing." And humanity's vengeance roared. The bombardment lasted until the planet cracked. Shields failed, oceans boiled, continents split under relentless fire. Billions of voices went silent in a single night. The Dominion's seat of power, its pride, its arrogance, was reduced to glowing ruin. When it was done, the fleet hovered in silence. No cheers rose. No celebration. Only the heavy weight of history written in flame. Hale stood at the viewport, watching the last fragments of the Dominion capital fall into its burning core. "This," he said softly, though every officer heard him, "is the price of ashes."